We can only deal with these imbalances from the inside. We have to come from the deep muscle system internally. That muscle corset that wraps up deep round inside and acts like a safety belt. And the muscles that go all the way out underneath the pelvic floor, up the groin, all this here is going to need to be strengthened. So we're going to get into a program, a specific program to rehabilitate Troy's body. And this is done with a clinical focus, both myself and Troy, in order to get the results that we need. It's not just have at it exercise. You know, this is something that we get attuned to. It's something that we get to learn and teach ourselves how to integrate. It's quite an amazing process, and get many results from this instead of just going have at it exercise just because I think I need it.
Or following the wrong exercise professional out there, teaching the same exercises to men, women, overweight people, old, young, and I see this in the park all the time. And I also know that at my age, and I go back in the gym and I start pulling something, that I know that it's very important to come here and see you and get this all assessed, because it's not as easy as what I did in my 20s. Just get into the gym and build muscle.
That's right. And so we get a map of Troy's body. This is a custom tailored program for Troy. Like Troy just mentioned, you know, in general, people coming to the gym and they're getting the same exercises from the trainer, whether you're 20 years old and fit, or whether you're 50 years old and ailing, or you're 90 and you're in a wheelchair. They're giving you count to 10 and push hard and make plenty of noise. That's really what amounts to a lot of that, which really isn't getting us and taking us where we're going. So once we have a real appreciation for what this movement can do, you know, this is Troy's own program that you're going to see him take on here in his own specific way, and learning to do these exercises internally, connecting with the inner and outer unit together. So the first thing that we normally do is to awaken that deep muscle system. It's no good starting to exercise yet. We have to have an awareness of that dormant muscle. We arouse this transverse abdominis deep inside here. We isolate it first so Troy can get an appreciation for what he's aiming for. So otherwise all he's doing is just exercising and thinking of his external muscles. Troy has to have the understanding that there's an internal muscle system that he has to connect to through the movement, which is something that maybe not many people get to experience, because when we talk about core, we're not talking about the six-pack here. It's a deeper layer. It's behind. It's the six-pack is for the dynamic movement to move. The deep intrinsic muscles, which create segmental stability, whereas opposed to the outer unit, muscle unit, that creates gross stability. So we need both. We need segmental at each joint to stabilize, and we need the gross stability so we can move and stay intact in correct posture through our movement. So this sounds plain and simple, but it really isn't. This is a whole teaching. This is a journey that Troy's going to discover, and when he connects to that inner unit, it will start to unravel the way he thinks. He'll start to see outside of his box, so to speak. So this is the beauty of arousing the body, opening the heart. It changes the way that we think, and this is the healing process which I've seen that works very, very well. Your body is your mind, and minded body.
Yes, mind is an embodied process. I love that. And so maybe you could give a few pointers on nutrition and how diet and metabolic typing is very important for the internal unit, the guts, and how the body hangs out.
Well, certainly on the other side of what you don't see as yet, the diet is a very significant part in being able to arouse and integrate that deep muscle system. Because when we eat foods that are full of chemicals, that have been processed, pasteurized, denatured in some way, like most foods have that are sold in the general supermarkets today, those foods have now minimal nutrition in, maybe no enzymes because of all the cooking and all the chemicals. So this is partly what ended up Troy being in this space in the first place, because food that's not appropriate for your body will create inflammation, will create swelling within those muscles, which inhibit their function. So this is where we got to clean up his diet. We got to start purifying his body so those muscles can respond to the exercise. Because if we're still continuing to eat junk food, then that's just going to really be a very hard challenge to awaken neural muscle response.
And so things like vaccines, antibiotics, I grew up on Captain Crunch and Pop-Tarts. I mean, these things can exacerbate the situation. You add to it alcohol and staying up late in my 20s, even up into my 30s. And so, and that can create havoc that is lasting in my body today. Yes?
Yes, most certainly. Most certainly. I know from my wild days of consuming excessive alcohol, it's taken me many years to cleanse myself from those experiences for how I tainted my body. It doesn't happen over a week or 2 weeks. The process starts and you start to feel better in that time, but it's an ongoing journey that takes a while to unravel and practicing eating food, the healthy foods that meet my metabolism. So that it comes from a macronutrient ratio proportion that we're going to determine for Troy through a questionnaire, and that will put him in a category of either a protein type, carbohydrate type, or mixed type. And then you start to practice in that space as what your answers are to the questionnaire. As an example, I am 70% protein type. I'm a very strong protein type, and there are genetic reasons for that. I'm Caucasian. I came from the northern hemisphere out in Europe, and so there's cooler climate, so I'm more apt to want to be eating more fat and protein. Just like the Eskimos in the climate where they are freezing cold, that's their environment for thousands of years, and that's what they've become accustomed to, is eating a lot of protein and fat. They won't find much vegetation in that environment. Whereas opposed to someone in the Amazon jungle who's near the equator and it's a lot hotter, their genetics will need different types of food, and they would maybe in general be more lean towards more carbohydrate, more vegetation, because that's been in their environment, that's what they've evolved in, and that's what their body needs. So you can see where we're coming from here. So food, very, very important part of this process. It won't really work without we dial his diet.
Yes. So vegetables don't grow very well on ice, is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So those natives to that environment, they had to adopt to what was available.
Right.
They had to, and not a lot of vegetation, but just to say things like the adrenal glands in an animal have more vitamin C than any other food known. So this is where those natives got to appreciate that really, because of their genetics and what they were accustomed to eating, they were still able to meet their needs wholefully in a holistic sense of eating, even though they didn't really essentially need the vegetation because it's in the animal.
Right.
And
they did that intuitively as well.
Intuitively.
Counting macros with a calculator, right?
No, they didn't do that. They didn't get on the scales every day and start weighing up and taking their blood pressure and start doing all these things to lose weight and get better. It was just a natural process. But we've lost that natural process to know what foods really work for us. Because our body is so distorted and unhealthy and shut down, we're not necessarily reading our body language. We're coming from our head, like the example, oh, my head says ice cream, but my body says an apple. So we've got this opposing, conflict going on here. My head wants one thing from what I'm used to doing, and my body is screaming out for something natural that we're not used to connecting with our body and feeding it in that way. So this is a process of learning, getting a deeper connection with our body language, and not taking so much notice of what our head's calling for. Those addictions, those habits. And we want to go there. I'll have my ice cream, sod the apple. So we get into the body. And this is what this process does. It helps once we connect to that deep intrinsic muscle system, then Troy will have a better idea of his body language. Because when those muscles are shut down, that language has gone very silent, or it's only a whisper, and we're not really hearing it.
Well, it gets louder with the pain that's in my body.
Well, yes, pain. Well, we're still coming from our head, and
let me stuff it with ice cream.
A lot of the time, if the ice cream don't work, I'll go and get some numbing pills, some drugs, and that'll do. Yeah. So this is the unhealthy cycle that we continue on. We eat junk food, then we got to go and get drugs to help for the junk food that I can't digest and have problems with. So it's a vicious circle. So when we start doing it from the ground up, getting into the deeper aspects, no stone unturned, and this is the rubber meets the road.
So that's the Holistic Healing Institute.
Most definitely. Come along, if you dare.